When I was growing up in a small village in the hills of southern Spain, things were difficult, to say the least. My family was poor, not the kind of, we're struggling but we manage, poor. No, we were the kind of poor where even the basic things, food, clothing and warmth, were luxuries we couldn't always afford. My father worked in the fields, and my mother stayed home to take care of us. But there was something missing, something that no one ever really talked about. And that something was love. My grandma, known as Abuela Rosa, lived in the house next door. She was the kind of woman who made everyone feel like they were a little bit afraid of her. Her voice was like gravel, harsh, and she always seemed to have this constant frown, as if life had done her wrong, and she was determined to make sure everyone around her knew it. Abuela Rosa had been through a lot, I'm sure. She'd lived through wars, famine, and a broken heart. But that didn't stop her from being cold, distant, and emotionally unavailable. I remember the first time I really realized how much my grandma could hurt me. I was about 12 years old. I had just gotten my first period, something I had heard about but never fully understood. The cramps were so bad that I could hardly stand, and the blood was terrifying. I was in so much pain that I barely made it to the kitchen to ask my mother for help. But when I found her, she didn't give me the sympathy I expected. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked at me with a mix of disgust and impatience. Without a single word of comfort, she simply told me to deal with it. She said, "It's just what happens. You're a woman now. Stop making a scene." In that moment, I wanted to scream. It was as though she had dismissed my pain, as if my suffering wasn't worth her time. I wanted my mother to hold me, tell me it would be okay, but that wasn't the reality I lived in. I remember Abuela Rosa walking to her room without a single glance back, opening the old wooden chest at the foot of her bed, and pulling out a pile of rags, rough, torn cloths stained with rust-colored marks. She handed them to me like they were nothing more than scraps. No explanation. No warmth. She simply told me to figure it out myself and wash them when I was done. "Every woman does it like that," she said, her voice hard as stone. "Hide them. Don't let anyone know. Never let a man see." I stood there, holding those rags, feeling a mixture of shame and confusion. I didn't understand why this was something to be ashamed of, why my body, my very nature, was a thing to hide. I didn't understand why I had to do it alone, without any tenderness or care. Months passed. My body began to change. My breasts grew, my hips widened, and my skin felt too tight, as though my body was becoming a stranger. Grandma noticed, of course, and she began to dress me in long, loose clothes. She told me I had to cover myself up, not to draw attention to my body. But despite all her attempts to hide me, the men around the village still looked. They looked at me in ways that terrified me, in ways that made me feel like I wasn't safe. One night, when I was 14, I went to the well to fetch water as usual. It was dark. The stars were hidden behind thick clouds. As I carried the bucket, I heard footsteps behind me. Before I could react, I felt a hand grab my arm, pulling me back. It was Mr. Javier, a man from the village, about 40 years old, always drunk and always leering at me. He grabbed me with rough hands, tried to pull me close. I screamed, struggling to break free. He tried to kiss me, but I bit his hand. Hard. The taste of blood filled my mouth. He cursed and ran off into the darkness, leaving me there in the cold, shaking. When I told my grandmother, I thought she would protect me. I thought she would defend me, maybe even help me punish him. But no. Instead, she locked me inside the house for a week. I wasn't allowed to go out, even to feed the chickens or fetch water. She said I had brought it on myself, that a woman who walks alone at night is asking for trouble. It wasn't his fault. It was mine. It was during that week that I realized something inside me was changing. A hatred burned deep within me, a deep hatred for my grandmother, for my mother, for God, for everyone who had abandoned me, who had let me suffer alone. I was a 14-year-old girl, abandoned by the very people who should have protected me. The injustice of it burned like fire inside of me, and it would stay with me for years. After the week passed, and Grandma let me go, something inside me had snapped. I wasn't just sad anymore. I wasn't just scared. I was angry. Furious. The months passed, and I became more and more distant, shutting myself off from the world. I no longer cared about hiding or pleasing anyone. I didn't want anyone's approval anymore. Then, one day, something happened that changed everything. I started finding little notes tucked in the cracks of the old stone walls near the porch. At first, I thought they were a joke. But the notes continued, always signed by the same name, Daniel. He was the son of a neighbor, a boy about my age. I had seen him around but never really spoke to him. The notes were simple, kind. He wrote that he thought I was beautiful, that I was different but in a good way. The first time I read one, I thought it was a prank, but the more I read, the more I began to believe him. He wasn't making fun of me. He was being sincere. Eventually, we began to meet in secret, early in the morning before Grandma woke up, at the well. He'd bring me simple flowers, little trinkets. It was the first time in my life someone had treated me with kindness, someone who didn't see me as a burden or an object to hide. For the first time, I felt like I mattered. I started feeling things I had never felt before. I felt happiness. Real happiness. But of course, Grandma found out. She was furious. She dragged me to the village square one Sunday morning, in front of everyone. She started beating me with a belt, shouting that I was shameful, that I was just like my mother, that I was lost. People gathered around to watch, but no one stepped in. They just watched. I cried, begged her to stop, but she didn't. When it was over, she left me there, humiliated in front of the entire village. And that was when I decided I couldn't take it anymore. If you've made it this far, I need you to know that the strength to keep going is in you too. Please, take a moment to like this video if you feel the power in Miranda's story. And don't forget to subscribe, so we can share more of these journeys of hope and perseverance. I'll be right back with the next part where Miranda continues her journey. Stay with me.